Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to share with you a personal story that still sends chills down my spine. It's my true driving alone at night horror stories experience. As someone who works long hours and often has to drive alone at night, I've always been aware of the potential dangers that come with it. But it wasn't until a few years ago that I had a truly terrifying encounter that I'll never forget. I debated whether or not to share this story for a long time, but I realized that it's important to raise awareness about the dangers of driving alone at night and to remind everyone to be vigilant and aware of their surroundings. It's a cautionary tale that I hope will help others stay safe when they find themselves in similar situations. So, without further ado, let's dive into my true driving alone at night horror stories experience. It's a story that will make you think twice about driving alone at night on isolated roads. So, this happened a few years ago when I was working at a job that required me to work late hours. One particular night, I had to work a long shift that ended around midnight, and I had to drive through a dark and isolated road to get back home. At first, everything seemed fine. I had done this drive many times before and knew the route like the back of my hand. However, as I drove further down the road, things started to get really creepy. It was eerily quiet, and the only thing I could hear was the sound of my car's engine. The trees lining the road cast long shadows that seemed to move as I passed by them. I couldn't shake off the feeling that I was being watched, but I brushed it off as my imagination playing tricks on me. As I continued to drive, I noticed a car behind me that seemed to be following me. At first, I didn't think much of it, but as I turned onto different roads, I noticed that the car continued to follow me. I started to feel uneasy and decided to speed up, hoping that the car would eventually disappear. But it didn't. It continued to follow me, and every time I turned, it would also turn in the same direction. My heart started to race as I realized that this was no coincidence. Someone was following me, and I didn't know why. As if that wasn't enough, I started hearing strange noises coming from my car. It sounded like someone was tapping on my window, but when I looked, there was no one there. I checked my mirrors, but the car that had been following me was nowhere to be seen. I tried to calm myself down and told myself that it was just my imagination. But as I continued to drive, my car suddenly stalled in the middle of the road. I tried to start the car, but it wouldn't budge. I was completely alone, in the middle of nowhere, with no cell phone signal. I was terrified. That's when I saw a figure in the distance. It was a man, walking towards me with a limp. He was wearing ragged clothes, and he had a sinister look on his face. I felt my blood run cold. At that moment, I knew I had to act fast. I got out of the car and started running as fast as I could. I didn't look back until I got home safely. Looking back at that experience, it still gives me chills. It was a creepy and unsettling encounter that I will never forget. As I ran towards my house, I couldn't shake off the feeling that the man was still following me. I kept looking over my shoulder, but I didn't see anyone. When I finally got home, I locked all the doors and windows and sat there, shaking and trying to catch my breath. I couldn't believe what had just happened. The experience left me feeling vulnerable and exposed. I didn't know who that man was or what he wanted from me, but I knew that I never wanted to experience something like that again. The next day, I reported the incident to the police, but they couldn't find any evidence of the man or the car that had been following me. It was like they had vanished into thin air. Since that night, I have never driven alone at night on that road again. I always make sure to have someone with me, and I avoid that road altogether whenever possible. Looking back, I realize how lucky I was to have escaped that situation unharmed. It was a wake-up call that taught me to always trust my instincts and to be aware of my surroundings, especially when driving alone at night. So, that's my true driving alone at night horror stories experience. It's a memory that I will never forget, and it serves as a reminder to always be vigilant and aware of the dangers that lurk in the dark.